Across the Board with Ian the Colonel here at hawkradio.org and acrosstheboardradio.com. An interview that just can't wait. One of our favorite bands and somebody who just keeps going. You cannot stop this guy. Evan Seinfeld, formerly of Biohazard, now of Attika 7. Let's talk about this project. Evan, welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. And we were talking off air, how excited you are about this band, and you were just saying that you're starting over again, and in Biohazard you played bass and sang backup vocals. Now you're just singing. What does that feel like?
Well, in Biohazard I sang lead vocals and I played the bass, and then after like the first couple of gigs, I was like, we should really get a bass player, and I should just sing because it would be so much better for the live show. And the other guys in the band never wanted to do it, and so me, like I feel like I was liberated, like I've been walking around with a. I mean, I love to play the bass. I love to play the guitar. I mean, I play guitar on the album.
Yep.
I play guitar live sometimes. I play. I definitely not playing bass live in this band if I can avoid it because. I definitely sing better when I'm not playing.
Yeah, I was going to ask you.
When I can just concentrate all my mind and my body on my voice and channeling what I'm feeling. I wasn't born an opera singer. I need all my muscles.
Well, I think Tony Campos is a decent bassist as well. So you're covered in the back there for sure. Yeah.
Tony played bass on the album.
Right.
Tony's not. We have as you know. Because of Zach Broderick, who's now our guitar player, our second guitar player, and he's my secret weapon back.
No doubt, yeah.
Because Zach sings harmony, and he helps me fill up the vocals, and he's just our utility guy. He's the guy who I can always count on. But we just enlisted Scott Reeder, formerly of Caius, as our bass player, and Tommy Coles is playing drums, and the band just sounds ridiculous. It sounds kind of like a modern Sabbath almost. When we play live is like the best thing when you're in the room. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Tony, such a tight player, and I was really lucky to get him to play on the album. And Tony's literally the most. Tony's like the James Brown of heavy metal.
Okay.
Because he's like playing in Soulfly and Prong and Ministry and Assassino and Possessed. He's got 7 bands,
Yeah, and Great Prong, another great band. They were just on the show a couple of weeks ago, so another.
My first gig I ever played in an original band was obviously at Biohazard in 1987. I was like 17 years old or something, and Tommy Victor gave me the gig. It was opening up for Prong.
Nice.
In New York City, It's pretty cool.
Yeah, Tommy's great
a nice
guy.
guy.
He was amazing to talk to as well. So the album Blood of My Enemies actually drops today. Go out and get it. Don't get just one song, get the entire thing. But you've got Devil's Daughter out right now, Serial Killer. Let's talk about Rusty Coones, legendary motorcycle builder, but wrote the album as well. No secret that he wrote this while he was serving time in prison. Spent 2 years in solitary, and this is what he did to pass the time, right?
Well, Rusty was actually, facing a, life sentence in prison, and he, the American injustice system is certainly not known for its fairness or its unbiased nature. But, Rusty was in the federal penitentiary system in the United States here for 7 years, and 2 years of which he spent in solitary. And what's interesting, what got me hooked on, dropping everything I was doing and being in Attika was, besides the fact that Rusty and I are best friends, was, his story. I mean, he was a guy who played blues guitar, probably more like your boy Tad Benoit, you know, and he was in a vacuum. He didn't have music. Rusty'd never heard Pantera before. He'd never heard.
Really?
He never heard any of it. He wasn't
exposed to it.
Rusty knew old school music. He knew a little Black Sabbath.
Right.
He knew more rock than metal, and he kind of discovered his own metal and his own sound. Like, I'll put on a Metallica album, and Rusty has no idea what he's hearing, and it's awesome because
that is cool.
He's not influenced by it.
Yeah.
And even when we have riffs that sound a little bit something that he writes that might sound like something else, I know it's not coming from anywhere but himself. it's interesting because, like me, I listen to everything. When I'm influenced by everything I hear also. So we write together. But the first group of songs that really was the backbone of the album were written by Rusty in prison, and we rewrote some of them, and we added some songs, and we changed a few things, and we made it. We kind of all worked on it together to make it our own. But what an interesting, compelling story. Like, I'm never really interested in new bands because I always hear, we were all went to high school together, we were from the same town, our parents were really supportive.
Right.
And me and, I used to bang Joe's sister, and that's how we got the name of our band, Don't Bang My Sister.
Right.
We all used to work at Hot Topic together. Explains why our hair is all blowing in the same direction.
Yes.
I got a question because I'm a little out of the loop. Like when people have those like emo haircuts, is there like a significance to which direction it's blowing?
That's a good question, man. I don't know.
Like when I was a kid, understand I'm older than you guys probably. When I was a kid,
not much.
It was people didn't have earrings and things like that, and when guys started, I remember I got my first earring. It was like underground,
right.
Nobody had a guy didn't wear an earring. And if you got an earring in your left ear, you were like a bad boy. But if you got an earring in your right ear, you were gay.
Right.
It was like a secret gay signal. So I wonder if there's like a thing left to right, right to left. That's a sweeping emo hair.
What was the old saying? Was it left is right and right is wrong? Wasn't that how it went back
left
in the day?
Left is right and right is wrong.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this and you have sweeping emo hair, and we have no problem if you're heterosexual or homosexual. Just make sure you're complying with the fashion rules of emo and not sending mixed messages to people because, might go out, looking for some love and end up with a little more than you bargained for.
Yeah, it's crazy the different scenes because, we feature all kinds of bands here, so bands like that and then, rock bands and it is interesting. There was a band there of 4 girls who are 14 and 15 years old, man. It's
wow,
and they were ripping it up better than most of the bands.
They actually were good. Yeah,
they were really.
That's awesome. No, I love to hear about things like that. Chick bands. I think, hey, my wife, who I'm sure you know who my wife is, Little Lupe Fuentes.
Mm-hmm.
My wife has a music group that she's started, and it's incredible. It's absolutely mind blowing. It's like a techno pop dance electro group of all really hot petite girls who all sing and dance. They're called the Ex-Girlfriends, and they're not. We're going to be putting them out, later this year. But you never know who's talented and who's going to, don't underestimate people.
Yeah, and Evan, I don't know your life, man. I can't make a judgment on your life, but I can say that from my point of view, it doesn't suck right now. I mean, you were in an amazing band, Biohazard. Attica 7's great so far. And you got a history with some good-looking women, my man.
Yeah, well, I work hard. I work hard.
Well, and then, you have that side gig as well. I mean, you've done you've done directing and writing and everything like that. I mean, you were in Oz, for God's sake. I mean, you've done some acting, and then you've been in the adult industry for a while as well. You said you work hard, and so good pun for that, man. Do you still?
Yeah, well, I people always joke with me and tell me like a Renaissance man. I just one of those people. I kind of just do what I feel like doing. And,
right.
Like to me, and it's funny. You were talking about genres of music and all these subcultures. Like, it's the young people who decide what the next thing is called. Like when I was a teenager, I was into metal, and I remember like being about 16 and getting into hardcore. The first wave of like hardcore, it was all about not giving a what anybody thought.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that was what was hardcore about Biohazard back in those days. Now hardcore is like a uniform and a bunch of rules and, whoa, if you don't have 2 singers, but one screams and one sings, and you need one guy with a funny mustache and one guy with a hair like, it's really funny because I went to see a band the other night, and I remember the name of the band, and it was like brutal death metal, and it was a million riffs all glued together with there was no timing to it. It was just like, it was like a riffathon. And everybody was dressed funny, and they all had jumping, and And then they told me they were a hardcore band afterwards. And I was like, really? It has nothing to do with anything that you know what that means? That means I don't know shit because
Right.
I'm old. You know, it's not that they're not wrong, I'm wrong. You know what I mean?
There are so many subgenres.
Everything's evolving. That's what it changes to. And that's kind of where I got into Attica, because, like, me, if I'm doing the same old thing, you know, I'm not growing. I'm not evolving. And
Right.
it's like, to me, stagnation is death.
Yeah, and
you know,
I think
if I was a radio host, like if I had radio interviews, I'd have to be constantly trying to reinvent the show and raise the bar and be better at what I did, and, you know, try to find new things to play and keep it interesting for me, because I know if I love what I'm doing, other people can dig it. You know, but if you're not passionate about what you do, it shows. And that's why I think a lot of times bands that have been around for a long time, they hit that kind of like plateau where it's just like, you know, all right, what's going to be exciting and new from, you know, this band or that band, you know. Even bands that I love, you know, even bands that I love that I still go to see play, you know, I don't expect them to come out with something new that's going to surprise me, you know.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to expect that after a while, too, you know. But I think that's part of what propels us as well, and I think obviously it propels you, is to be able to share your passions with people. I mean, you know, your passion is music and sharing the ability to sing and play, and it's a powerful tool.
Is right now is Attica 7. I mean, I've always, like, my first love was rock music before I even got into metal as a kid, you know, was the Doors and you know, and the Beatles and the Who and the Stones, Jimi Hendrix.
Oh, yeah.
And then, you know, I was like 6, 7 years old. I got into Kiss, and you know, from Kiss I got into Black Sabbath. And when kids get into Black Sabbath, they turn into bad kids. And you know, and from Black Sabbath I discovered like Judas Priest and Iron Maiden and stuff like that, which was at the time like that was the edge, you know.
Yeah, it was.
And then, you know, once I got my hands on Motorhead, there was no looking back.
Right.
And, you know, these groups were just coming out, you know, and it was a really exciting time for me. And, you know, you evolve, you know, when you make music, it has to personify who you are for it to really be authentic and genuine. And when I founded Biohazard, I was a teenager, you know, and that's who I was. I was a Brooklyn City kid who was, you know, into metal and hardcore and rap. And, you know, things sometimes come full circle, because here I am, you know, 20-something years later, and my musical taste has gone kind of full circle back to the hard rock and the heavy metal and the things that I really love. And, you know, like Attica 7 is really influenced by things like early Metallica and Black Sabbath and Pantera and Godsmack and bands that are just straight ahead, because I wanted to do something that was personifying who I am now today as a grown man and what my lifestyle is. I mean, I ride a Harley, and you know, I hang with my friends, and I hang with my old lady, and you know, my lifestyle is what it is. And I wanted some music that really made me feel like it was a soundtrack to my life. And I think that was what we did best in Attica, was to kind of, you know, for me and Rusty to capture that with the band, you know.
Evan, would you consider Attica 7 to be the band you've always dreamed of?
Great question. I have to. I mean, I have to. I mean, we put so much time and energy into it. You know, it is the band I always dreamed of. I always dreamed of just singing and not being, you know, chained down with a wire and a cable. And, you know, I mean, I've literally, like, I've got some of my favorite musicians in the world in this band.
Yeah.
You know, like Scott Reeder, you know, like if I was going to get a bass player, we were scouting for a bass player. I mean, I consider myself, you know, my bass playing always got overlooked a little bit in the world because I was always singing for Biohazard, but I really consider myself a bass player by trade. And I always thought if I was going to get a bass player to play with me on stage, I was going to have to be really excited about that person's playing and their sound and how they put it down. I mean, you know, Scott Reeder is you know, hands down one of the coolest cats I know, and one of the best bass players. Like, I mean, he was up for the Metallica gig, you know.
Mm-hmm. Oh wow, yeah.
And like Tommy Holt, our drummer, is I've never heard anybody hit drums louder and harder than this guy in my life. And I've played with everybody from Jason Bonham, you know, down the line, you know.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I keep thinking he has like speakers in his drums or something, because they're so loud, it's crazy. But he's such an awesome drummer, awesome dude. You know, Rusty's my best friend. We hang together, we ride together, and you know, he speaks with his guitar. You know, he plays guitar kind of how I sing. Like, neither of us are like classically trained or, you know, considered virtuoso, but we're both all guts and all feeling, and you know, guys who like sharpen our tools as best we can with what we got. And like, you know, I love the way Rusty plays lead guitar, man. Like, he plays lead guitar how I sing. Like, we're matched.
I like that. Yeah.
You know, and Zach, like, he's a guy who like, Zach's all the icing on the cake, because Zach is like a super tight rhythm player. He's got all the special secret sauce, you know.
Yeah,
like Zach weaves the whole thing together.
Yeah, Zach's legit. Of course, our boy Zach Broderick there. Talk about working with Mudrock, who is a producer on this album. I mean, he's worked with Avenged Sevenfold, Godsmack. You know, I've heard you guys are pretty big on him. How did you choose him, and what was that like working with him?
It was funny. You know, I've known about Mudrock, you know, most of my rock career, but Dustin Schoenhofer, who's, you know, extended family, Attica 7 family, who was actually our drummer for a while, who actually played drums with me and Tony and Rusty at the very first Attica 7 gig that I sang at.
Okay.
It was his idea. He was like, dude, Mudrock would be the greatest guy to record this band, because he gets like the whole thing. Like, he records, you know, vocals like Avenged, and like how Sully sounds on vocals, Godsmack. But he also does guitar sounds that are like, I mean, I don't know if you've ever heard Throwdown.
Yeah.
Like, that's Mudrock. Like, it's like Pantera squared, you know.
Nice.
And you know, he gets like those organic drum sounds. I mean, he's got this killer sonic puzzle in his head. You know, he's like a mad scientist. Like, he has no bedside manner. He's one of the weirdest dudes you'd ever, you know. Like, I think he hates me to this day. And everyone's like, no, he didn't hate you. He actually really likes you. It's just how he is. You know, he's one of those, like, genius guys. Like, he doesn't have the normal people skills, because he has a relationship with sonic and sound.
Okay. What did he do to get, you know, different sounds out of you in the band, in the studio? I mean,
man, listen, I've worked with some of the best producers in the world. Dave Jordan, who did Alice in Chains, James Addiction.
Yeah.
I worked with Ed Stasium, who did the Ramones, and Living Color, and I've worked with, I mean, so, you know, Morton Pierce, who did that Helmet song you were playing earlier.
Oh, yeah.
And Mudrock's the first guy to kind of get this in.
Really?
And I always wanted to really open up and be melodic and sing. And he didn't even say anything to me. It's just the way he dialed it in with his gear, and, you know, and levels and compressors, and putting me in the track and getting me comfortable and helping me with my approach. You know, I came in and he's like, no. You're going at this wrong. It's like, he goes, forget everything you ever knew. Just start over. Just be who you want to be. You know, like kind of what you guys were talking about, making it your dream band.
Right.
He's like, if you could do this, he goes, don't be Evan. He goes, don't be what people expect from Evan. He goes, do what Evan wants to really do, you know? And, you know, in my mind, you know, I wanted to be like outlaw biker Ozzy Osbourne, you know, more than you know, what I used to, you know, what hardcore was to me, or what metal was to me in the 80s or 90s, you know, or the 2000s. I wanted to do the next thing. And I think, you know, coming back to, man, like, you know, he got such great sounds for Rusty, that Rusty just, like, opened up his lead playing, everything, man. It's just great.
So he pushed you, basically. He pushed you to the limit of what you were and got the best out of you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a good producer. That to me that's like working with E. He pushes me. He brings the best out of me. And I'm being dead serious there.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man.
Who's that?
He's talking about me.
Oh, okay.
I'm doing a small bit of ass kissing there.
Yeah, right.
Evan, if you had 5 to 10 minutes left to live in the world, what would be the last song you would want to hear or perform? Yours or anybody else's?
Wow. If I had 5 or 10 minutes left to live.
Could be 15.
15, what song would I put on? That's a tough question. You must ask that to everybody. Like, my first thing like that just pops into my head
Okay.
would be, I don't know, I'd play 2 songs. I'd play Black Sabbath, Killing Yourself to Live,
Nice.
and I'd play some Beatles, like, you know, like something like something really emotional Beatles, like Let It Be or
Nice.
Yesterday?
Yesterday, that would be good too. That's a good call.
Yesterday. That'd be very poignant, yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be a good one, Yesterday.
Yeah. Let's talk about how things have changed over the years. You know, we're a little bit younger than you, but not much. So, you know, we've seen how the scene has changed, and you know, even like going to concerts, like we said at Warped Tour. You know, it used to be just, you know, it was called moshing, slam dancing, that kind of stuff, unorganized. Now you have circle pits and dual circle pits and walls of death. And it's crazy how things have changed these days. But if you could, because you've been around for so long, if you could hand down like a time capsule to younger generation of musicians or your family or whatever, you could put 3 things in it. It could be a CD, it could be something physical, it could be, you know, a photo, whatever. What would you put in there to represent what rock means to you, what music means to you?
You know, that's tough. I mean,
We don't ask
you
the
know,
easy questions here.
you guys don't ask the easy questions for sure. If I wanted to pass 3 things to what, like what I like,
Like what? How you?
I want to understand the question. 3 things that like really spoke to me,
Right.
or that I think that I want to pass to the next generation.
Yeah, that represents music to you. You know, if you know, people said, "Hey, what's music? How can you show me music?" You know, what would you pass down to them? It doesn't necessarily have to be 3 things, you know, but just what is music to you, and how can you represent that to someone else? When you're 90 years old, how could you explain it to somebody? You know, show it to them.
It's such a difficult question in terms of like me. You know, too much is never enough.
Right.
So like, I would be like me. I might just send them a guitar
Right.
in a box and nothing else.
Which one, though?
But yeah,
What kind of guitar?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, like my first thing, you know, that when you talk about music, you know, is to always think of the Beatles, like that, or the Stones, and like, you know, the fundamentals. It all comes from the blues.
It does.
You know, it all comes from the blues. You know, and like the early Beatles records were all just 1-4-5 blues songs, basically. You know, but you know, I would want people to understand the emotion and the connection of live music, you know, and maybe send a video clip of, you know, of a band's finest moment when they're doing a song and the whole crowd is singing along, and people are either, you know, or maybe a moment where the whole place is, you know, slam dancing or moshing, whatever you call it these days. But I think, you know, music is a universal language, and that's really, you know, the thing is that music touches us on a level that nothing else does, more than film, more than television, more than video. You know, if it didn't, we wouldn't be having this conversation. I'm sure you guys aren't extremely overpaid at your radio show, and I'm certainly not doing this for the money either.
Right.
You know, music is it's a higher level of spirituality. You know, which is why I'm saying everybody has their own musical journey and their discovery, and music speaks to us all in different ways. You know, which is why, you know, I mean, I could tell you, hey, I could send them, you know, the Beatles anthology and Beastie Boys' License to Ill.
Good call.
And, you know, that would be cool also, but, you know, maybe I'd rather send them a guitar.
Right.
You know, have them discover their own voice.
It's so true, man. You know, I've got friends who are coworkers, that kind of thing, that don't listen to music. You know, people outside of the radio station that don't listen to music on a regular basis. You know, if I ask them, hey, what are you into? You know, they're like, I don't know, whatever's on the radio. Okay, but name a band. I mean, who's on your iPod
Yeah,
or whatever
but
the
even
hell?
those
It's
people,
crazy.
Even those people, they get a tear in their eye when they're watching Jerry Maguire or Free Falling by Tom Petty comes on.
Right.
Everybody feels something. We all have receptors, that are attached to our brain and our emotions. Like, to me, that's what music is. It connects your mind,
Yeah.
Your audio sensory perception, your ears, and your soul, your heart. I always say there's two kinds of music. There's kind of music that makes you feel something, whatever that may be. Chills up and down your spine, pissed off, angry, annoyed because it's Justin Bieber, whatever it may be. It makes you feel something. And then there's everything else, which is music that when it's on, you don't really notice that it's on.
Right.
It's just kind of on in the background, and that's kind of like what I call everything else. And, I spend all day long looking for that thing that makes me feel something.
Absolutely. I can't imagine life without music. I mean, I'm always listening to music in the car, at work, whatever. I mean,
listen, I'll give you a good example of universal language. My wife, she does dance music, and her favorite group is called 21, spelled like number 2NE1.
Okay.
And it's a girl group from Korea. They don't even speak any English. They sing in Korean.
But she digs it.
We don't have any idea. We have no idea what they're singing about. But it doesn't matter. Like, it's that good. You know what I mean? It's like if you can feel it without the words, imagine if you knew what somebody was saying. Or maybe that would even it up.
Right. Yeah, no doubt. And I think that's the first time we've ever asked that question that most people consider deep and got a deeper response than the question we asked.
That's a good point.
I mean, as I'm sitting here listening to you say this back to me, I'm like, damn. You've got me thinking about this question on a whole different level than I've ever thought about it on. And I appreciate that because that means a lot to me as well.
Well, yeah, I was glad I was able to engage you guys so much today. You can follow us at Attika 7. It's ATTIKA 7. On our website, we have all lyrics. Please check them out. It's the most important thing to us. The feeling, the lyrics, and how it all comes together. And Attika 7 is, music for... it's a soundtrack to your personal revolution.
Absolutely. Attika7.com. Check these guys out. Evan, thanks so much. We'll be back here in a few minutes on Across the Board with Ian the Colonel here on hawkradio.org.
And acrosstheboardradio.com.